Allison. It's good to finally meet you.
No, good to finally get caught up and chit chat a little bit.
Yeah, our paths just kept crossing across Instagram as much of us do. So it really piqued my interest. Like you've been in design show houses and magazines, and your art's really starting to be collected by a lot of people. And I just thought it would be fun to have like your point of view, how you balance life and art business and all of that. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, well, like I love to just know how you got to where you're at right now. Like what was the spark that got you started as an artist?
Sure. I kind of feel like many people who have been involved in art and creative things all their lives from a young age. I was always dibbling and dabbling in something, whether it be calligraphy or at one point I was into stained glass. I mean, it was just any number of things that I wanted to pick up from time to time, but nothing really stuck. Then in college, my roommate was a studio art major, and I wanted to, I spent some time with her in the studio, just kind of following her around, but I was afraid to take a real class, so to speak, for a grade. So I kind of followed her around a little bit. And then I took printmaking and sculpture. One of those I took pass fail just because I don't know how I thought I would, literally fail a class, but I had convinced myself that that would happen. And then the professor came to me later and said, why did you do that? I said, I don't know. I just didn't know. I had just thought that was just going to ruin my GPA. So that was sort of my path to dibbling and dabbling. And then, I went after undergrad, went to law school and was hoping to kind of make some time. And that just didn't happen.
Well, as a lawyer may not have time to make art. I can
It
understand.
just didn't happen. And it didn't happen after that when I started practicing, but I was in between working at a firm and then leaving a clerkship and then going back to the firm that I had some potential time off, so to speak. And my husband real smartly, said to me, just kind of wise, maybe you should, take some time off and figure out something that you might want to do. And I said, I really want to learn how to paint abstracts, and nothing has really stuck. And I want to try that. So I ended up taking it was a course, but it really wasn't a course because everyone in the class they were professional artists,
Oh,
very established artists in town, and they kind of like to get together and paint together and kind of critique each other's work and just be in a shared space. And I didn't know that. I was not. I
so
was
you got thrown in.
yeah, I was the odd duck out who had no clue what was going on. But they were very nice, and we kind of instructor kind of took me back at like more of a color theory, and we were doing color charts and using those charts to do collage work. And so that was kind of my introduction to collage, which I really love now, and why that's so near and dear to my heart. But from that experience, I kind of said, okay, I think I understand a little bit better about color and how I can't really force this painting abstract. I really have to understand how the colors play together. And so I said, if I kind of keep up with this, I may be able to figure something out. And so that's kind of what I did. And I've just kind of stuck with me. This is the thing that's stuck.
This is the thing that stuck. And the consistency, the showing up and continuing with it is probably what's propelled you forward.
Right. I'm just, I kind of take it one day at a time and one step at a time. So that's been my approach. It just came about as an opportunity for exploration and really just leaning into something that I wanted to do.
Yeah, you live in South Carolina, yes?
That's right.
Yeah, it's a very, very vibrant art energy in the South right now. Like I've just seen it like grow over the last decade. And
Yeah.
so you were really fortunate in some ways, even though you're like, I'm the odd one out. I don't know really much about painting, to be around all of the other so-called experts. I don't know at what level we're considered an expert, but like all of these experienced artists that really exposed you to a lot of opportunity, a lot of maybe wonder if that shifted the way you looked at how you can be an artist. Because if you say they're successful, that kind of gives us an impression of what our possibilities are,
Right.
That influence you seeing what they were accomplishing.
I think it gave me some aspirational hope, but really just understanding the impact of community more so than others, and that they were always still in a process of learning. These artists were more experience, and they were also, a little bit older than me, and in age wise, but they were still pouring into their craft, still reaching out to each other, still accepting of feedback. Just seeing that we're on a continuous path and journey was helpful for me, and it's always helpful. Just thinking about it from a mentoring perspective. If I've done shows and I've talked to people who are, they may have children who are older than mine, or just in a different stage of life.
Mhm.
And the feedback that I've received from individuals like that has been valuable to me. And it's really important. I mean, to give an example, I usually did about one show a year that was out of town. And I think I said to another artist, you go to these shows and you meet everybody, and it's just
Yeah.
so much fun. The energy's there. And was talking to a friend about wishing that I could do more shows. And she said, Allison, I understand what you're saying, but there will be time for all of those shows. And right now your kids are young, and you just have to like keep all that in mind. And that just stuck with me. Like, so you need to be, I have found that I need to be surrounded and talk to and communicate and interact with lots of people in different areas, not just art, not just business, not just legal. I just think the combination of all that really helps inform the big picture of life. It's always
Yeah,
important.
and community and other people with experience that can pass on their wisdom. I like that,
Mhm.
especially that moment where you can realize like it doesn't have to be a rush to do it all right now. So that was great advice that the artist gave you. It's like we want oftentimes as artists, we want it all to happen now. We want all the shows, we want all the be in all the design, magazines, or we want our art course or program to be huge, and we want to travel around the world and teach. Like I know we all have these big aspirations, but I like that in time it'll happen.
Right.
Be in the place that you are right now. So you have younger kids. They're not
Right.
babies, but they are
Not
younger
babies.
kids. They are younger kids, but you're also balancing motherhood and art with being a lawyer. So
Right.
talk about a little how do you balance that, or do you just keep juggling every day?
Um, I think that I have a good productive work balance. Now, going back to what we were just talking about, that also means can't do all the shows, can't do all the opportunities, lots of saying no sometimes, or just putting things on a, maybe this can happen in 2 years or 3 years or something to think about, but just really pushing back and saying I can't do everything. Although this is a business, I mean, it's a business as soon as Uncle Sam says it is, right?
Yeah,
Whether you
right.
whether you sold one painting or not, you have to, so a lot of times during the week, people think, "Oh, you're painting all the time." No, I'm not. I'm paying taxes and taking care of all this stuff, and, responding to emails and just thinking big picture. So that doesn't change. I mean, in fact, adds more, but it also means, the time that I do get to paint is very precious, and always thinking about, okay, how do I leverage this into maybe more opportunities? How do I work smarter, not harder? So it forces me to think about that. Just the time sensitivity. I think lots of jobs have time sensitivities, but when you're literally on a clock and thinking in 6 to 7 minute increments all the time, like having that
Yeah.
background in my mind, I'm usually thinking about how to be more efficient with my time, and I kind of carry that throughout life. Now, does I mean, are there downsides to that? Do I miss the boat sometimes? Am I organized? No, but I'm working on it.
I think it's a work in progress for all of us. I mean, like you said, you just have to take the baby steps. Is the thinking in 6-minute increments based off of being a lawyer? Is that
Yes, like,
your
billing
experience?
time
Yeah,
is
because you're billing time, so you are probably far more mindful of what time means as it's passing. I mean, that's the non-renewable resource that we have is time.
yeah. No,
Right.
that's very true. And I'm not in a I don't have to build time now. Thank goodness. And if people are listening who are in that season, like I totally get it. It's but what that experience taught is taking that potential negative or not fun. It's not fun to do to literally
Yeah.
have a timer run. It's not fun. But there is a way to think about that in a positive light. And so that's what I've had to do. But obviously, first and foremost comes my family and my full-time job, and just trying to be flexible when it calls for it. But also that means sometimes, late night working or doing painting on the weekends. It just really depends.
Yeah, I understand. There's always going to be so many layers of what we need to do to be human.
Right.
Yeah, to be human, to balance the family aspect, the work aspect. There's just always going to be part of that, but impressive to me that you just continue on the path of building your art career at the same time as you're building a, your law career. And to keep that as a part of who you are and an expression of who you are.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know, I'm sure most of our listeners are still trying to figure out both sides of their life. Like, if you have a full-time job, how do you fit in, make time for art?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. And that's what I like to talk about, because I think that art, or just creativity in general,
Mhm.
fuels us in a really good way and helps inform, whatever work we do, and helps us bring certain happy energy to our families and our friends, and just a different way to think about things,
Yeah.
thinking outside the box and being a problem solver. So I am a big proponent of making time, even if it's just the 15 to 20-minute increments. So sometimes it may not be perfect, but I mean, I am the person that leaves, my easel up and my paintbrushes nearby. So if I have a few minutes, I'm gonna probably squeeze in. And right now I'm kind of doing more Bible journaling, which so that's kind of been my thing. I kind of leave that ready to just to approach that even for just a few minutes. And that's more, for me, more than anything. But looking for the pockets of time. And then in terms of like business growth aspect, I'm also looking for opportunities that maximize my visibility, so to speak. Thinking about how can I, reuse content, create content, show up on Instagram, but more importantly than that, what's behind the scenes. And so looking for outlets who might want to share my story, or looking at how that might fit in, and then participating in shows or juried shows. We just had in town, we have something called Flat Out Under Pressure, which is a 24-hour art making competition. I
Yeah.
love that. Like, that's what I do. So here I go. It's a little awkward in that, I think that day it's during the summer. So I take my kids to camp or swimming or wherever. We go pick up the canvas, come back, do that other stuff, log in for work, and get that done. So I don't get to start till, 5 or 6, but that's an opportunity that kind of fits in my
Right.
existing art making practice that now I can participate in. I'm in a show that's got some publicity and eyes on, and then also I talk about it on my Instagram, and people are interested because they're like, how's she gonna pull that off? So it's already, but that's
That's
a
a very fascinating point of view, is that sometimes by participating in activities, we're creating content for ourselves. What you said was you're looking for opportunities that maximize exposure, whether it's exposure to new people through participating and maybe, publicity, but also just opportunities that you can talk about that might draw people into your world. I don't know that I ever really thought about it that way. Like, I've looked for opportunities where I can collaborate with people, but I've never really thought about just the activities that I do for myself then become an interest for other people who are, Instagram's like a little window into our life. So that's a really good way to think of it.
Yeah, it's for me it works. I mean, it's something I look forward to. It's 24 hours of a push, or 12 hours, or however long.
Right.
But that's those are the sorts of things that I look to do. Am I going to be able to do a big road trip show, pack up the camper and take a bunch of product down there and sit outside in a tent for 3 days? I can't do that. So
Right.
those opportunities I'm not going to look to anymore. I'm not going to feel bad about saying no to them. But if
But the
there's
24-hour period, that makes sense. It's like, all right, so, grandparents or husband or whomever, like, hunker down for 24 hours while I go do this wild, crazy thing.
while I do this wild, crazy thing, and then that's it. And then we'll milk and talk about that as long as we need to.
Right.
And then we'll move on. But to me, that's how I can show up. And I mean, and as that's why also we have to not be so enamored by somebody's Instagram or what they're
Right.
showing, because it's not their complete reality. So I just shared a big thing. I mean, that's if I'm recording that whole time, which I don't, but it makes me a little nervous. But if I am recording or taking some times to record the content, then all of a sudden I've got a lot of things that I can share. And so people say, "Oh, it looks like you're painting all the time." And I say, "I paint a good bit, but it's certainly not all the time." And I'm not trying to create any illusions about it. But if you want some content, people say, "Oh, I want to interview for this." I actually did something recently this year for a lawyer who was focusing on like creative lawyers. He wanted to come shoot me in my studio. And I said, "Hey, I actually don't have a studio, but how about we rent this space and I'll pay for the rental space because what I'm going to ask you is to use
All
your
the
pictures."
content. Yep, there you go.
So
Brilliant.
he said, "Sure, great." So we spent a couple hours. I had tons of pictures. I have good content. He used it for his project. I use it for everything else. You get
Right.
clearance to do that. And now I have pictures of me, posing, and I have pictures of me painting. And so now there's content and I can continue to use that. So again, opportunity that somebody came to me about that I had to think, I'm not trying to be selfish, but how does this beneficial for everybody? That's
For
that's a
sure.
way.
It's like you said, maximize your opportunities.
Right.
So I would love to talk a little bit more about, like, I noticed over your CV a lot of great collaborations being in High Point and being on magazines and whatnot. So I would love to hear like how you got into that aspect of your business. Like, how did you make those connections? And where do you see that going?
Yes, through Instagram and sort of initially I thought about where I wanted my art to live, and I see my art in homes and, corporate spaces, and that's usually where it lives, but I thought about interior designers and decorators, a skill that I do not have, but reaching out to those individuals are really more so, and Instagram was a different place a couple of years ago, but
It was
right,
so much
it was the
easier.
nostalgia.
Oh, the good old days of
Good old
Instagram when it
days.
actually worked.
But kind of getting to know people, especially, you want to get to know people who are sort of ahead of you in the game, but
Right.
also maybe where you are in terms of being on a growth trajectory. I can't say it. Let's say a growth path in their particular field. It doesn't have to be your field. But that was kind of where some of these initial opportunities came to me, was that I helped people or worked with people when they might have been starting out too, and
Mm,
they were growing and I was growing, and so when they were looking for somebody to maybe do something that's more of exposure, because I had a trust relationship, and because I was in a growth area too, then I am more interested, then I'm willing to do something like a collaboration. And so that's kind of what happened for me to get connected with a very successful interior design friend who wanted to place my art at High Point as part of her High Point Furniture Market for a part of her showroom collection room, and she's continued to grow. And so we just stay in touch, and obviously things have shifted, but once you get a couple of those opportunities based on developing a friendship or a relationship, supporting people, then they are likely to refer you to someone else, or someone else's name that someone speaks highly of you or says that you were a pleasure to work with or went out of their way. So I don't think it means giving up everything for free. or
right,
and I'm not advocating that at all. And even if it's a low cost or a discount, think about, will you pay for supplies, or are you going to mention my name here? Or are you going to,
right.
how are you going to, help promote me? You have to be careful because people always are. And I've done several things where I wish I hadn't, putting my art somewhere. And I'm like, you don't ask somebody for a table for free. Why isn't it that you're okay with me donating my art for something? So gosh, it's hard, but for people that you have a relationship with and you see their vision and they are interested in supporting you, then those are good collaborations to do, and one thing can lead to another.
Yeah, I love that idea of finding someone who's kind of the same on the path about the same distance as you are in that growth. That really makes sense because you're both in a place where you need more collaboration to be seen. And so there is more of a mutual benefit in working together, even if, like, maybe, like you said, it might not be a paid opportunity, but you're both working together to grow your business.
Mm.
Interior design and an artist, or art consultant, other people who are still looking to grow. I love that idea. Like, learn how to build those relationships early. And that's pretty brave to just reach out and start nurturing those relationships early on. A lot of artists think they're going to just sit around and wait until it comes to them. But what you're
Yeah.
saying is you actually have to be proactive and take action.
For sure. I think you have to be proactive and take action and start cultivating the relationship. And I'm very much on if there's sort of a new place to show my art or some, I mean, I have to research it, but if it's something that they've got the ingredients, they've got the audience that maybe is not my audience, a good place for additional eyes and exposure to people that I may not be able to connect with, and they're on the front and they're on the cutting edge of something, I rather be amongst the initial cohort group of people that they've reached out to than on the tail end and waiting to see if they were really successful, because I've already internally determined that they are going to be successful, and I want to be there to be on the path of their success.
Yeah, you wanna be there in their growth journey, just like they need to be there on your growth journey so that you guys can support each other for more than just, yeah, this moment in time. The lasting relationships do make a huge difference in life and in the industry as well.
Right.
What kind of opportunities has that brought? Like, let's first say, what is High Point? Because a lot of people are like, what is she talking about? But I've heard of High Point, and it was years ago
Yeah.
where I was just like a little envious of the idea of being able to show up as an artist at High Point. It's still, I'm assuming, there's been a recovery since the pandemic and it's active again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple years since I've been, but there's a huge High Point, North Carolina is a sort of a small town that gets really huge a couple times a year because they have a big furniture mart that is well attended by, anywhere from your local interior design colleagues to, your HGTV stars who've got big licensing collaborations with furniture makers, anyone in the home design space, your licensing and your licensing individuals who are doing your giclées and reproductions
Okay.
for your hotel spaces, your apartment spaces, your department store spaces. So it's really a whole collaboration of showrooms, and so you've got your interior designers who are looking for furniture lines and things, and stores who are looking. It's just a big, networking opportunity for those individuals, but it's kind of everything in one place for a couple, a week or so. And so
All
I
the interior designers from across the nation show up for that one.
everyone's there. So yeah.
There. So that's a great opportunity for exposure, and the way that you were able to get in there was by nurturing a relationship with somebody who had access to space, right?
Yeah, that was their world, and, I've done that twice with 2 different interior designers. They were designing a showroom and asked me to do a commissioned piece, and so because I had a relationship with those individuals, I knew they were going to take care of my work and take care of my name. That felt like a good thing to do,
Yeah.
and, just going up there to see the space and meet people, also helpful because you just don't know when an opportunity presents or when somebody will remember you or or because people are always watching. That's what I try to keep in mind. They don't have to be following you. They might not be on your listserv, but people know who you are, and so it's just good to keep in mind.
That's the keep on showing up because you don't know how you're going to connect in the long run. What opportunities came from being in a High Point? I did notice you've been in some magazines, and that's pretty cool. What was your deal with HGTV?
This was I was, I think if I'm remembering the thing that I think that you're remembering, I, had reached out to, I think we might have been connected on Instagram, but she has a show and it was on a different network and it went to HGTV. I sent her a piece of artwork and she put it on the show, and I did not, that's an example of something that wasn't paid, and then I didn't get the artwork back, but to be able to say that you did that, sometimes you just have to ask, and you ask in a situation, and again, you want to figure out how to make that the best fit. If you're going to be able, if you want to put something on a TV show, for example, or donate something, do you want to donate a 40 by 40? I wouldn't. I mean, now you have to think about mailing that, and then that's a
Right.
big loss and expense, but, is it something that you can do a print? Is it something you can do a paper piece? To still get the exposure, but not just set yourself out in a hole. So,
Yeah, but there is a cost, as business owners, marketing is should be part of our expense. And I
Yeah,
see
for
that
sure.
as a marketing opportunity that's worth spending the money. Now, I've gotten a lot of requests for donations to charities, or
Mhm.
somebody's in the middle of Midwest America who has a small little like fundraiser they're doing. And it's like, that's really sweet, but I can't give
Can't do
art
it.
to every little teeny offer, like,
Right, right.
it's important to me if it's something local that I know affects my community. Occasionally I'll make a donation, and that's fine with me, but there does come a time where the loss is the opportunity is worth way more than the loss. So
Right.
donating something that's going to be seen in HGTV, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think it's back to leveraging it, and so that if you haven't burned up all your sort of marketing, your things that you can donate, pieces that you can donate, opportunities on something that's not gonna give you the value,
Yeah.
you wanna save that for something that does give you the value. Even if you put it on your resume and you want other opportunities, but it's great.
Right, because sometimes when you look at that list of opportunities you've already had, then that sparks the interest of other high
Right.
reputation to say, okay, well, she's already valuable enough for HGTV or High Point. Like, this is a good opportunity to include her as well. So, or
Exactly.
him for those of you who are guys listening to the podcast. But yeah, so like I love that kind of exposure. And that's the same thing, like the work that I've done on Instagram, showing
Mhm.
up regularly, getting opportunities to be in magazines and on other people's podcasts. And like that is actually a signal to the world saying,
Right.
I'm available, I'm interested, I want the opportunities, I'm willing to work with you. I play nice.
Right.
my my whole goal is something that will elevate you as well as elevate me, and see how we do these collaborations that we all benefit in the end. But I definitely feel like the more that you're cooperative in society in
Mhm.
general, if you're supporting others, that support tends to grow. If that
Right.
makes sense, it's like it does signal to the world, like, oh, she's open for business.
Right, and somebody trusted her to do this
Right.
and do it right. I mean, it's all word of mouth, and I mean, that's kind we're our art world is kind of up against not up against, but kind of connected to sort of this
Mm,
influencer world, and it
yeah.
really is sort of that, if so and so says it's good, it must be good. Now we obviously can't value our art and our world based on that, but I think we have to be conscious of the fact that that's the world that people are operating in, is that
I think it's been that way since the beginning of time. We're looking for people we can trust to some level, and experience equals trust. Where do you start with that? You start with exactly the advice that you gave: build and nurture relationships early on.
right.
And when you do that, and you always work at your best capacity, because I used to represent artists and work with them in galleries, and boy, were they sloppy sometimes and late. And then it would be like, and even working as working with artists who are creating courses, and when they're disrespectful of your time, they're not showing up, they're not fulfilling their commitment, that
Yeah.
that rubs off in making decisions on who
Mhm.
you want to work with again, or who you would recommend. So those who show up and they give 110%, those are the people that I'm first to recommend. Those are the people that I'm willing to, like, word of mouth, bet my reputation on them. And so that's our responsibility as artists when we have those opportunities, is to show up 110% and
Mhm.
serve the way we promise to serve when we're collaborating on something, whether it's
Right.
delivering art and making sure it's in perfect condition and not scratched and bent and wired with fishing wire. I mean, like, that actually happened. Someone brought in art to hang in the gallery and had fishing lines stapled to the back of their painting to hang.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness. So we always want to show up as our best day on Broadway, right?
Right, right, right. Right. No, that's good.
Yeah. And that's probably why you continue to get recommendations, because you're showing up and you're doing the work.
Right, right. I mean, I think so. I think so too. I mean, and it's, I don't get everything. I mean, again, it's a very small percentage, but where I am in my lane, I would just want to do the things that I can do well. And if you can't, if somebody says, "Oh, I need this by whatever day," and you can't do it, I mean, you say that you can't, and then maybe work on another arrangement that maybe you have a little bit more time, but like you said, so that you can fulfill the promise, or what the expectation was for you. And that goes for that's for everything. That's just life.
Right. It is just life. Don't say yes if you can't fulfill your promise.
So basic, maybe
So
something we learned
basic.
in kindergarten, but it's hard, right?
It's hard because we want to be able to do all the things, but I respect so much that you're balancing how much you're actually capable of doing, having a full-time job and being a mom and continuing to work on your business. And I love that. You're like, I'll just pick a couple of things a year, a few things that I know will really propel me forward, but not all the things, not all the shows, not all the experiences, because there isn't time and energy for that. And if you do that, you'll certainly burn out.
Right. And then it's not fun anymore, which is what the whole this is what it was supposed
Yeah,
to be, is fun.
right.
And so
This
now the
is your
fun,
outlet on the side,
yeah,
man.
this is the
Take
outlet.
the
It's
art.
supposed to be fun, and now the fun of it is something, is growing something, because growing things is fun.
Yeah.
So seeing that is fun, but it still has to be fun.
It has to be nurturing to your soul, because as soon as it becomes a drain, then why are we doing it?
Then why are we doing it, right? And
And
if
why-
it becomes, yeah, if it becomes becomes a drain, then I think that's the time to, at least for me, kind of restructure how the quarter goes,
Yeah.
and trust that because you didn't get an opportunity, or because things are slow, maybe that's intentional, and
Yeah.
appreciate that. Oh, maybe I wasn't supposed to sell out all this work right now.
Right.
Maybe I was supposed to hold on to it for a little while. I
Or
don't
maybe
know.
I'm not supposed to be painting big paintings for sale. Maybe it is time to just do, as you said, maybe some Bible journaling. Or for me, I've been working on some jelly prints and drawing and pattern making just for fun.
For
And
fun.
then that rejuvenates us to the point where like then that opportunity comes and you're ready for it. And it may take a year of that rejuvenation before it happens, but all in due time, all in the season. And I agree
Right.
with you on that quarterly block. Sometimes you just think in quarters so that you know I have the capacity for one big thing this quarter and that's it. And
Mhm.
I'm going to work towards that one thing and not, 10 or 15 things like I've done in the past, but I'm
Right.
back now. So this is really a good reframe. It's like there is time, to do there is time, and time is also an illusion because it's going to go faster than we think. But we don't have to do it all this year, is basically what I'm saying.
Right.
We have to do it
Right.
all this year.
Right. And then those patterns and other smaller works, or works on paper that you're doing. I mean, again, thinking about it from the business perspective, all right, at some maybe at some point you'll develop to be a pattern or surface designer. Somebody wants to buy the patterns. I mean, you just don't know. So it's just like
Right.
always setting up the next thing and being ready for the opportunity.
Right. Exactly. So I'm kind of curious if given the opportunity, or maybe it's just a choice where you're at now, would you go full-time art, or is being in law still a passion for you that you see that you're not going to be quitting anytime soon?
Yeah, like for right now, what I'm doing works. No, do I recognize, does that mean I can't, that means I can't put, all the eggs and the energy in this other basket. And that for me right now is fine. I don't see a reason to do anything different. Now, if Oprah calls me,
Yeah, I mean, we're all in that boat if Oprah ever calls.
right? So I mean, I
Yeah,
always have
sure.
to, I be fair, have to be fair in that respect. But for right now, and right now, this works for me, and I like what I'm doing, and I like being able to share this story because I'm in the middle of it, and because
Right.
I'm doing it. And the other thing I always try to tell people is that this whole idea of full-time artist is not completely accurate either. Most people are doing something else, maybe have a side job to that, or when things are slow, or within the art business they have diversified their income, and so that it's
Mhm.
not just selling. They're probably doing some teaching, they're probably doing some licensing, some consulting. So it's not, everything isn't as it seems, and so that's what we have to keep in mind. If that's a good space to be, great. But people who are entrepreneurs, like are full-time, I should say full-time
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, or even part-time, are, well, if you talk to them, you'll hear the pain points. Everybody
Yeah.
has one. And so
Well, I mean, there's the first pain point of how to make more money at what we're doing, but the second pain point is how do I actually get time to make more art?
right. Or, so anyway, I think we one of the consequences of sort of this social media life that we're all part of is that thinking that the grass is always greener. And I have to tell
Absolutely.
myself this too, which is why I needed, that artist to say, no, there's time for this. Don't be fooled by everything that you're seeing. People aren't doing all of this. I mean, and so
Right.
the grass isn't always greener. Somebody's grass is, astroturf. So I just
Yeah.
have to say,
It's an illusion. It's an
her grass
illusion, folks.
It's not,
Yeah,
maybe not grass.
not. Maybe not. It's just a bunch of weeds, folks. No,
Yeah.
and we each have our own path to forge forward with our creative journey, and choosing to make a career out of it, make a business out of it means that there are so many different things that we need to juggle, including finding those opportunities and the PR and all of those things to keep expanding to where we want to go. Yeah.
So just honoring this season and, having a plan. I think about things that I might want to do, but for right now, there's a lot to be said by just taking things one step at a time, one day at a time, baby steps. So that's kind of where I am now.
Be present for what you have,
Right.
which has honestly been my secret to happiness, is being present in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good.
for
That's
sure.
good.
All right. I love to ask one question at the end of every podcast. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What's your big audacious dream?
I knew you were going to ask this.
Ah, there you go. Good.
I have one. I'm always trying to think about how much to share, but the thing I love about my full-time job is writing. I'm at heart, I'm a writer at heart. So my big audacious dream is to connect the art with the writing and just what I just call is just creativity, because it shows up in so many ways. People think, "Oh, yeah, I'm not an artist." But I'm like, "You are?" And what is it that you create and nurture and have created from emptiness and blankness, even if it's just that you
Hmm.
offered a different approach to something. So putting all of that together in some way is my big audacious dream.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah. So my website is helloallisonart.com. And I am mostly on Instagram because, again, I wish I could be on all the social media, but I'm not good at that. So I just hang out on Instagram mostly at Hello Allison Art. And
Awesome.
yeah, so that goes back to not being able to do it all.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Focus on one platform where you can show up consistently. I love
That's
it.
consistently as best I
Yep.
can.
Yeah, that's the key. We can't, like, I mean, if you told me today I was supposed to be doing TikTok, I'd probably quit my job.
I know, and I'm like you. I was like, "Oh, TikTok, I'm supposed to be doing that," and I was like, "I can't do TikTok." Ah.
No, no. I'm like, I draw the line.
Yeah,
Draw the line at that.
somewhere, I wanna spend more time in Pinterest, but I just can't do it. I just can't
Yeah.
do it right now.
Mm, all in due time.
All in due time. That's
Well, everyone come and say hi to Allison Ford, but hello, Allison Art.
Yep, 2 L's. That's
Well,
important.
yeah, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. This was actually a really enlightening. I learned so much today.
Oh, well, I'm glad. This was a joy. I love talking about this because there's space for us all, and we have to see that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great.